Good evening, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. My name is Lilian Tonga, and I'd like us to get started. Kindly let's introduce ourselves in the chat box. Hello, could someone kindly confirm if you can hear me? Thank you.
Yes, Lilian, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Clever. A big welcome. Let's continue introducing ourselves. Um, so as we continue introducing ourselves in the chat box, we're going to have a short mentee exercise. kindly use go to Mentimeter and use the code. Sorry, I don't know if you can all see the code. Yeah, the code is 6531742. 6531742, and just kindly tell us what you're grateful for. What you're grateful for this year. We know that COVID-19 has, really disrupted a lot of things, and our lives are not as they were before. But there's just that one thing that you're grateful for. Isn't it just being alive, being healthy? So kindly let us know in just a few minutes. Yeah. Thank you. Can see the responses coming in. Someone is thankful for family, health, life. Yes. Keep the comments coming. I'm personally grateful for, that courage to be able to moderate this webinar. It's a new experience for me, and I so far so good. I hope so. But yeah, it's one of the things I'm grateful for. What else are you grateful for this year? Friends, yes. Friends have been really crucial in helping us get through the tough times. So yes, we're grateful for friends as well. Yes. Yeah, we're also grateful for new opportunities. Uh, that's really good. COVID did not just, disrupt our lives, it also brought us new opportunities, and if you seize the opportunities, well, good for you. If you haven't yet, there's still time, it's never too late. So 30 more seconds to get your responses. All right. So thank you for taking part in the exercise. Um, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Okay. I'm having some technical difficulties. Just give me a minute. Okay.
Sorry, Lilian.
Okay.
Your voice is a bit low. Kindly be more audible.
Okay. Uh, is this audible enough?
Yes, it is better.
Okay. Sawa sawa. So I'm going to jump straight in and welcome our speakers. So the first speaker is an MDCHB degree holder from the University of Nairobi. He also has a Masters of Science Development, Finance, Sustainable Development from Strathmore University. He's also trained in public administration from Kenya School of Government, managing healthcare business from Strathmore University, um, the Stanford Seed Transformation Program from Stanford University Graduate School of Business, and also Senior Executive Program from Harvard Business School. He's a medical doctor, a social entrepreneur, founder and CEO of Roy Family Hospital. He has 2 years experience of being a medical superintendent and 10 years experience of being a medical officer in varied hospitals in the country, and has a key interest in access and affordability of healthcare for all. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about Dr. Maxwell Okos. Kindly let's welcome Daktari with, our favorite emojis in the chat box. Um, okay, as we do that, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, who's Dr. Abdi Mohammed, who's also an MBCHB degree holder from the University of Nairobi. Sorry. Dr. Abdi is an MBCHB degree holder from the University of Nairobi. He also has a Master's of Science in Health Economics and Policy from the University of Nairobi as well. He's a healthcare executive and entrepreneur, co-founder, CEO, and managing director at Ladnan Hospital, Pangani, Nairobi. He's a council member of KMPDC, the national chair for Kenya Association of Private Hospitals. He has 11 years experience as a medical doctor. He has been featured on the Business Daily top 40 under 40 in 2015. And he's passionate about enhancing and scaling access to healthcare to improve the health of communities. So ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, I'd like to welcome our speakers. But before that, I'd also like to introduce my co-moderator, Ms. Mudoni, who will be taking over the panel discussion. Welcome.
Thank you, Lillian, for the great introduction. Thank you also to our panelists for joining us today. As she said, my name is Mudhani Kibuni, and I am honored to be the one to moderate this session. So I'll just to be a question and answer based type of discussion. And I will pose one question to Dr. Maxwell and one question to both Dr. Maxwell and Dr. Abdi. So let us start. So Dr. Maxwell, what made you study development finance as a postgraduate degree?
First and foremost, I think I'll need to clarify that. I started development finance, I dropped out. So yes, I didn't finish it. But I am at the tail end of my health economics. Yes, so, but the reason why I wanted to know to join, why I joined development finance was which areas to invest in, which are sustainable and are impact oriented. I think that's one area we have not done very well as a continent towards directing our resources to more development oriented investments, which are sustainable in the long run and are impactful to life of the population that we serve. So that was the main reason why I had a very keen interest in that particular program. However, I didn't get to finish it because of various reasons.
So, and Dr. Abdi, what made you study health econ as a postgraduate degree?
Thank you very much for this event, and thank you for welcoming me. My interest was mainly to basically understand the economic aspect of health, the costing, what needs to happen for healthcare to be affordable and sustainable. So that's one of the reasons, but I'm not yet done. I've been having to finish with my thesis. That has been a challenge. When I was about to do my thesis is when I started receiving calls from investors, so I was busy with transactions. So yes, I'm not yet done.
Okay.
And it's just by coincidence that also Maxwell is not yet done.
It's okay. You get time to finish. So we can go over to now Dr. Maxwell. What led to your motivation, or what was the motivation behind starting Dry Hospital? You're muted. You're on mute.
Sorry. I was very clear on what I wanted from day one when I joined medical school. That's when I finished high school. My passion has always been in commerce and business. And so when I ended up in medical school, I needed to merge the two things, doing medicine and also doing my passion, which is commerce and business as a whole entity. And so even during campus days, I was one of those people who were selling things and hawking things from door to door. And so when I finished and I joined my internship, I saw a gap and a need. And that's how Roy Family started, because when I was an intern in Kiambu, we would get people who are waiting for surgeries for even 3 years. And so it made me understand that there was a very big need towards healthcare service delivery in our area. And so I say, let me dip myself in the ocean to be able to be one of these people who want to solve the problem. And that's how Roy Family Hospital started.
Okay. And what about you, Dr. Abdi? The motivation behind starting Ladnan Hospital?
The motivation, other than money, which is the main motivator in all businesses, is it's something that I always had a dream of. But what pushed me was the challenge that we faced when I was in Malindi. That's where I did my internship. And I worked there as a medical officer for 1 year. So at that time, this hefty salary guys are getting was non-existent. So it was a very minimal salary. And then the patients were not any better because they didn't have most of the community in that area are very poor. So they were unable to afford services. And of course, as you are aware, most public hospitals, maybe now you can say some are better because they have a few equipment here and there. At that time, the challenge was there was lack of equipment and there was lack of drugs. So most of the things you would send them to go and do outside. So majority were unable. So there you are getting little salary, and then here is your patient, you want to do something, but you can't do because they can't afford, they can't do X, they can't do Y. So basically you're just around helpless, both pocket-wise and satisfaction-wise. You're not satisfied job-wise because you are not helping the patients because they can't afford. And economically, you are not any better. The little that you get, which is around 42,000 or 43, is only able to sustain you as a person if that is you are lucky and you are frugal with your management of your finances. So that's then what I thought, you know what, there's a need for a middle hospital, which is not high end and which is not like public hospital that is not able to service the majority of Kenyans who can afford something but need those services. So that's why, that was the motivation.
Okay. And those are pretty amazing motivations behind starting the hospitals. And on to my next question, to build up on what you have both mentioned. How now to Dr. Maxwell, how has Rwai Hospital been able to incorporate CSR? Basically giving back to the community around there.
Sorry. I think the life of an entrepreneur is a daily CSR project. In the Bible, we were taught in high school that to whom much has been given, much is expected. And so with that in mind, every day you always have people knocking on your door with various reasons and various pleas for help. So that's the first thing that we have done. We don't shout about it, but there are very many people we have been able to sort their needs, from patients who cannot afford to pay their bills that we have to waiver, to just people in society who have various needs in terms of shelter, children's home. Other than that, we have a football team that we are supporting as an institution. It's called Roy Flames, and that has really helped a lot of youth. Impacted them in a they have something to look forward to. Every day I get messages, and so they have something that engages them, and they're doing very well. We have invested in a coach for them. We are working towards giving them a team bus, and then of course we partnered with Nairobi County. At that time, currently it's called NMS, for their monthly cleanup exercise. We were the main sponsors for the cleaning exercise around Ruai area for about 2 years now. The list is endless. I think the number of things we've done as an institution, is it the drought support team? Those are the ones I can think on top of my head, but I think we have done so much to the society.
Okay. I'm sorry to say, okay, I'm sorry. I've noted that you're breaking quite a lot. I don't know whether it's only on my end. Yeah, Dr. Maxwell.
Hello?
Hello? Yeah, the network is quite shaky.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Really? Abdi, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you, but what she's saying is it's like when you're speaking,
okay,
unapotea kidogo kidogo.
Niko kwa barabara, acha nitajaribu nitafute network.
That's why.
Is that better?
Why.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
if you're on the road, definitely yes. It
yes.
will be on and off.
Okay.
Yes.
On to you, Dr.
Okay, I'll try to get.
Dr. Abdi, how have you been able to incorporate CSR into the hospital?
Actually, if you think about the whole hospital generally, most of the things basically we do, if we were to say we are going to charge fee for service at the market rate, it will be way higher than what we are charging. So some of the things that we have done is like, for example, we do give immunization every Wednesday for free. We don't charge even 20 shilling, which is charged in county hospitals. So that was one of the things that we took up and said, because the area we stay, majority of the people, the uptake could be very low in terms of immunization. So we opted to be one of our main giveaway. Then we have the usual medical camps that we do regularly for the community around, or even in other areas, in churches, in mosques, wherever, in schools that we are able to partner with. Then number 3, we have been able to work our prices in such a way that patients who have NHIF card are able to access surgery, dialysis at no extra cost. So that means anyone, even Mama Mboga, who is able to pay 500 shilling a month, when she has a need, like for surgery or dialysis, she can come to London and pay no extra coin. Then you have the other usual challenges, which is deposits for ICUs. We are able to negotiate or even sometimes admit patients without paying any deposit and paying maybe the next day or the third day. discharging patients who have not cleared, waiving fees. So those are the things that we have been able to do most of the time with the patients. So those are the things that we have done.
Okay. Another question would be, okay, we can start with Dr. Maxwell. How have you been able to contribute as a hospital towards achieving universal health coverage?
Okay. Thank you very much. In case my network still fumbles, you can let me know. Is that better?
Yes, it's better. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Roy Family Hospital has one of its greatest achievements is being one of the first private hospitals to have been registered in the category B of NHIF. To make you understand this, NHIF has 3 categories. Category A is generally public hospitals. Category B for the longest time was perceived to be a mission hospital category. What category B means is you offer service at the packages given by NHIF and you do not co-charge anything. Then category C is the normal one that we know that people used to say NHIF inalipia kitanda and then you pay the rest, quote unquote. So we were among the first private hospitals to actively take category B as a package. And so what category B means basically is you have your NHIF card, you do not co-charge anything. A patient comes with a card and just they deliver, they have a CS, they have a surgery, they come for the outpatient and you claim to NHIF. And for me, that in its sense should be the main yardstick of universal healthcare. So for Roy Family Hospital, I think we have been in the process of universal healthcare even before it became a subject topic as it is today. Pretty much. We are working towards, of course, reviewing our packages in the other branches and ensuring that generally healthcare becomes affordable, but at a sustainable way to manage the institutions.
And what about you, Dr. Abdi? Have you been able to incorporate THC?
It's mainly the affordability in terms of taking the NHIF card for certain things, not like Maxwell, because sometimes you have to look at the sustainability in terms of some of the prices are very unsustainable, but some of them are reasonable. And luckily, we were one of the first group of hospitals who accepted the surgical package, which NHIF came up with, where majority of the big hospitals in Nairobi said they can't. So that's what we have managed. So that means with NHIF card, 500 shilling a month, basically, literally, you can get most of the services that you need, which lead to catastrophic spending, because that's where the biggest challenge is for UHC. UHC is not, in my opinion, should not be just for headaches and such. It's where relatives and community need to do harambes for you to get certain services.
Okay. Thank you for that. And now we can move on to the challenges. So we can start with Dr. Maxwell. What are the challenges you have faced so far as an entrepreneur in the medical field?
If I was to start listing the challenges, I think we'll spend the whole night talking about challenges.
You can name
from raising capital to setting up, to acquiring equipment, to employing staff, to staff stealing from you, to the headaches of cash flow management. You realize we offer service today, we get paid after 6 months, sometimes after 7 months, sometimes even after 1 year. You have staff you have to pay on a monthly basis. If you do not pay them, of course, you're on Facebook and Instagram and everywhere that you do not pay your staff. You need to have supplies, and you have suppliers on your neck. They give you an account for 60 days. If you do not pay on 60 days, they close your account. You need to have drugs on your shelves. You need to have food for your patients. Of course, again, with patients who are just some patients who are not very appreciative. You offer service when they cannot pay, then they turn the story upside down and make it sound like medical legal. 80% of these cases, Abdi will tell you from KMPDC, most of them are usually about finances. Somebody who just cannot be able to pay, and so they turn the table around to make you look like the bad person. Sleepless nights, you have obligations to pay, the banks are on your neck, you have installments to pay, you have not been paid, they do not want to listen to that. It's a roller coaster, to be honest with you. It's something that if you're not a strong person, then maybe it can take you down so fast. So the challenges are huge, they're immense. It's not a bed of roses. I believe Abdi will concur with this. What am I? Again, you just don't know who's genuine and who's not genuine. And then again, the other challenge is when you do it very young in life, some people just think you're vulnerable. And so you're also dealing with extortionists here from various government agencies who are always on your door trying to be able to get what they can get from you. The list is endless. I think we need to, if you're talking about challenges in investing in healthcare, I think I've given about 3 talks. Sometimes it's time that cuts us short. So I usually tell people it's better you break it down. Is it a challenge to do with personnel? Is it a challenge to do with finance? Is it a challenge to do with supplies? Is it a challenge to do with just you as a person trying to remain sober in the middle of all these things hitting you from left, right, and center? Yeah, in a summary and in a nutshell. I don't know if I've answered your question.
You've answered it extensively. So I've seen a question here in the chat box. Challenges that you have, one challenge that you have mentioned is not being able to follow up on, there's usually a problem with the cash flow or the finances. So how are you able to follow up on the defaulters? You're muted.
Repeat that again, please.
How are you able to follow up on the defaulters when it comes to people not paying fully or people not paying for their services?
You know, health is a very tricky position. For example, right now we've been having COVID. Patients come in, you put them on a vent. They have acute respiratory distress. They're dependent on the vent fully. They paid a deposit of 150,000 that you asked for to get that bed. After that, there's no money coming in. The bill has hit 1 million, still no money coming in, has hit 2 million, no money coming in. You're approaching 4 million and the patient is on that bed. You cannot remove the vent from this patient. And let's say the patient gets well and now is back to the ward. Your options are very limited. So it reaches a point you're actually literally begging for a service we have offered for us to be paid. You cannot go and tell your doctors, I will not pay you because this patient has not paid, because the rate of default is also very high. With time, they will not come to you. They'll prefer somewhere else. Yeah. And so you have to find a way to balance these two. So you start begging with the patients and find a compromise of either payment plan. Usually they leave a title deed. Legally, there's nothing much you can do with that title deed, to be honest with you. Land and property is one of the hardest things to dispose. Even banks will tell you that. Some people leave logbooks, title logbooks. Then you have a payment plan that stretches, let's say, even 1 year down the line. I'll now take you back. So you have a bill of 4 million from one patient. He stretched a payment plan for 2 years. But this 4 million, you have to bridge this gap immediately. So what do? You go to your bank, borrow an overdraft. Of course, the bank will give you an overdraft at a certain interest or get a loan at a certain interest, but the patients, rarely will you get this interest aspect loaded to them, because at this point, your hands are tied and you just need your money back. Sometimes you might even compromise to take even 70% and forgo the 30%. Like your margins are not at those figures you're discounting. We survive by the grace of God, to be honest with you. There are insurance companies that will just play you round. 1 year, you say, let's do sign-offs. They tell you, we misplaced your claims. Please bring them back. Of course, they know you do not have those claims. You just have the summary of what they accepted. And so now it becomes a ping pong game whereby you're like, okay, fine, can we agree on a discount to close off these things? So you just find yourself losing and losing and losing and losing more often than not. But nowadays we have like a, what do you call it? A criteria to gauge the patient to take in and patient not to take in. You can know mwenye mtavurutana mapema from day one, and you can know somebody who one way or another has ability to pay. It's sad that healthcare has reached that point, but there are also services which we have borrowed somewhere and we need to pay. And there are people who have offered service that we need to pay. So again, it comes down to you only take those who can be able to pay. You only deal with insurances who can be able to pay. And those who do not pay, the same way suppliers close accounts for us, it's the same way we close accounts for them.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that. And over to you, Dr. Abdi. What are the challenges you have faced so far in running the hospital?
I think Maxwell tried to summarize, but basically it's not possible to summarize. It's all he said, but the biggest challenge other than capital is managing human beings. That's the hardest thing that you can ever do. Because having the right type of workers and staff who are competent and able to do the work without supervision. As much as everyone writes in their CV, can work under minimal supervision, but trust you me, literally everyone wants to be supervised, like kindergarten children. So that's the biggest problem. So yeah, those are the two main challenges: capital, cash, and managing human beings.
Okay. And would you say, which are the challenges you have faced during this COVID period?
During this period, the challenge was just universal. Like everywhere else, the workload has gone down. Patients kept away from hospitals. The number of COVID patients were not as high as was thought it would be or anticipated based on those models. So basically, hospitals were launching areas for people just to go and sit down and have a chat, unfortunately. But as the entrepreneur or as the owner or as the manager, people have reported to work. The expectation is salary at the end of the month. Whether they saw one patient or they did not see any patient for that day, or whether there is one in the ward or none, or whether the kitchen cooked any food or none, you have to continue sustaining, paying salaries, paying, if it's rent, utilities, suppliers, the days just keep on moving. And your projections were based on the work you would be doing. So your plan was to pay your suppliers based on your income, but now you don't have any income. So yeah, it was not easy. A few hospitals took some drastic measures, reduced salaries. Others had to lay off some staff. You had to cope with one way or another, because if you didn't, you would close definitely. And that's what's happening to other businesses as well. If you look around, most of the restaurants almost shut, never to be reopened.
I say, would they still be the same challenges right now, even with the second wave, or with the approaching second wave?
No, after we, you know, there was also that memo that said people to do minimal electives and such. Basically, we were told to free up bed space for COVID patients. And unfortunately, there were no COVID patients. So even now, with the second wave, yes, there has been demand for COVID bed spaces, but luckily, doctors and patients are continuing with their life as well. We are still doing electives. So things are moving as much as they are slower. But on the COVID side, yes, most private hospitals that admit COVID patients had higher numbers in this second wave. Yeah, so basically, we are not yet out of the woods, I would say. It will take some time. And you know, it also, you need to realize that the private hospitals depend on the general public. So if the general public are not working, they are jobless, or their company have stopped paying for their insurance. So that also means there are very fewer people who can afford healthcare in the private sector, either for lack of money or for lack of insurance cover that they were used to. So that also is another challenge that also affects when there's a low economic activity in the country.
Okay. On to, okay, we have mentioned the challenges that we have faced so far, but I'm sure not all days are bad days. So how would do you have any success stories, or what makes you wake up in the morning to go to Ladnan Hospital?
For me, the success story are many. Maybe Maxwell did not mention some of us. I used to have hair when I started Ladnan, but now all that is gone because of the stress. But nonetheless, the most important thing is usually when you see you have employed so many people, that means like Ladnan, we are almost 80 directly. And then if you add the locums and such, you will reach up to 100, 120. So that's 120 families that you have touched. Then when you look at again, there are people who are brought in the middle of the night, maybe at 2 a.m. They don't have, they went to a big private hospital. They were told 700,000 deposits for ICU. Then the staff there tell them, oh, but there's another private hospital somewhere down in Pangani called Ladnan. They might accept. And then they are brought, they are admitted 2, 3, 4, 5 a week, or 2 weeks later, they are discharged, they go home. And you admitted them without any deposit. So that also gives you that satisfaction that, yes, you saved some life, you are able to help some people. Then there is the other many patients that you see every day who, the mamambogas, the boda guy who only has NHIF but now has a fracture. If he went to KNH, most probably he will be on traction. For the next 3 months, he will not earn a salary, it might not heal, he will need another extension. But if he has an NHIF card and he comes to Ladnan, he gets fixed. Or if he's done, he goes home after 3, 4, 5 days. After a week or 2 weeks, he's back to work, he can continue without selling his bicycle or motorbike or whatever it is, or tuk-tuk. So those are the things that you look at you and you say, okay, if you are not there, maybe they might not have gotten, or they might have gotten somewhere else. But that ability to serve both the mighty and the small man in whichever way you can, those are the things now that make you feel a little bit better, worth following up those bills with NHIF, even if they take a year to pay. But at least you saved someone. You saved a family who would have needed to do harambe and do all those things. But now with their NHIF card, they are able to get services and go home. Yeah. So those are the two main group of people that make worth.
Okay, thank you for that. And over to you, Dr. Maxwell. Any success stories, or what helps you, or what drives you despite all the challenges?
To say that it's full of challenges, it's not a lie. But also we will not be honest to say that there are positive sides to this journey. There's the impact side of it, of course. Seeing about 230 people directly depend on the institution today. From an institution that started with 4 people, of course, that's growth. Plus other people, about 600 who depend on the chain indirectly. Growing from a small clinic of 4 rooms to having 5 branches across the city is another success that keeps me knowing that we are doing something that is good. Had it not been good, we would not have seen that success. Of course, there are patients who are like our diehard fans who have grown with us, mothers who have had their firstborn to their 5th born through us. And they say it's only that you cannot have the entire line of 100 children, but they would still come to us any day. The impact on society economically, I see how when I first went to Ruai and the changes we have brought in that environment today, those are stories and legacies that I will always be proud of and lift my head up to say there's a change that I made to this country. Even me as a person, I've grown, I've learned a lot of things, I've matured in this. I always tell people I'm a 33-year-old boy with about 65 years life of experience. Abdi says his hair is gone, mine is turning white at a very alarming rate. And yes, so we are being sharpened for greater things, and we can only be hopeful and hold on to it. The things that we see around us tell us that indeed we are doing something right and we should not give up despite the challenges. Of course, we cannot say we are not always being paid. There are days you're paid and your account is full of money and you think, Mama, I've made it. Then tomorrow you realize, oops, I'm going bankrupt. So that's the cycle of an entrepreneur. There's one day you're up there, the next day you think you're finished and you're done, and you see auctioneers coming to you. And so it's a roller coaster. So to say it's a bad thing would be a lie. There are days which are very good and fantastic. There are days you just want to sink your head somewhere and just let no one find you. And so the growth has been immense. Of course, seeing my family coming up as well, there's something to look forward to. The lives we've impacted, as Abdi has said. In summary, I think that's it.
Okay. And also, another question would be, any advice that you have to the young medical student who wants to be an entrepreneur following your footsteps?
I always say that in life you should not be, narrow-minded, for lack of a better word. You need to broaden your vision of things. And remember when in medical school, everyone was, I finish undergrad, go for internship, come for postgraduate, go sub-specialization, become this big doctor and have this title that has 2 sentences. Because all our lecturers would come and say MBCHB, MBA, Fellow College of Royal Surgeons of Kenya, Fellow. And so that was everyone's dream. And I say, let us not all be looking like goats in one direction. Have your options wide, but whichever direction you take, do it the best that you can. If you really feel you want to go into entrepreneurship, it is not as easy from what you've heard from both of us. I think our experiences are the same. And even if tomorrow you call Dr. Gakombe of Metropolitan, or some Kenya who started Nairobi Women's, or Salome who started Radiant, we all share the same narrative. It is the same script across board. So you need to be aware of this. It is not going to be easy, but I always say dip yourself into the ocean and start swimming. Once you're there, you'll figure how to swim your way out or swim your way to the other side. So whoever wants to go into entrepreneurship right now in medical school, I say go for it. Don't keep saying what if and what if. Start with what you have. One thing I've learned with the universe is they do not want to hear your dreams. They want to see what have you done with the little that you have. So if you say you want to start a dental practice, what have you done? You'll say, I don't have a dental chair. But there are other ways you can access a dental chair and offer services. So that young doctor who really wants to go for it, my advice would be listen to yourself, be convinced that that's what you want, and start the journey with the little that you have. And if you're persistent and genuine, and you really feel that passion, because entrepreneurship is a passion. If you do not have that passion, then you cannot survive. That's why most startups close shop. You realize, I'm not cut for this. Let it be. Yes.
What about you, Dr. Abdi?
It's the same thing. When you started medical school, it was a dream. So you just go for it and you start. There are many people who drop out of medical school. You are still ongoing. You are in 4th year, you are in 5th year, you are in 6th year. So you never, as Maxwell said, you see, you had that dream even in campus. You said, I want one day to start a hospital. Just keep that in mind and start as little and as early as you can, depending on your appetite for risk. Because as you heard, you must be able to survive as well. So you must be ready for the challenges, and you keep in mind, because generally, if you are not ready for that risk, what will happen is you will take for the hill the moment you face a small challenge. And then you can also start with one leg here and another here, trying to balance. You're not sure, because what will happen is generally you will face obstacles. So the easiest thing to do is, being a human being, is you'll just jump back to the safety. So that's one thing that you have to keep in mind, that if you are going in fully, and you go for it. When you face obstacles, you look for solutions. You don't run back.
Okay. Thank you so much for the pieces of advice. I have surely been motivated. Maybe one day I'll start my own. So the last question on my end before we get into the Q&A would be, what would you say is the future you have in mind, or what is the future you want to achieve for Ladnan Hospital?
My plan, or current plan, my plan was to have as many hospitals as possible across the country. But currently, because I have investors on board, so it means I'm mainly going through with the plan of the investors and what they have in mind. So for now, it's what the majority think, how they think we should be moving, based on their targets. So, but initially it was, and that's where we started. We had a clinic in town, a branch in Wajir. So that was the idea, opening branches as across the country as much as possible.
Okay. And what about you, Dr. Maxwell?
Again, as in strategy and business planning, things change every day. Initially, we wanted to go across the 47 counties. That has changed. Currently, we are looking at more of coverage within Nairobi metropolitan area. We currently have 5 branches. We are opening the 6th branch in January, God willing, inshallah. After that, there are areas we've mapped across Nairobi that we want to cover. Next thing would be probably looking at a microinsurance model, because you realize this country, it's only about 3% of Kenyans who are insured. Together with the social health insurance scheme as an add-on, then you'd probably be able to make healthcare accessible to most Nairobians to start with. The dream is bigger. At some point, I've said I always want to be the first healthcare company that is listed in Nairobi Stock Exchange. Of course, expansion comes with its own challenges. There's a capital and fundraising that everybody will tell you. We are also fundraising and looking for investors who are also going to be aligned with our vision and mission of the institution in terms of growth and strategic direction. Above that, we are looking at also diversifying in other sectors of health, medical waste disposal, pharmaceutical lines. These are dreams for now, but of course there are steps which have been made towards achieving them. And so that's the dream and future of RFH as a group today.
Okay. Yes. For the Q&A, we can start. We can start with you, Dr. Maxwell. From anonymous attendee, with the healthcare you both wanted, okay, maybe it can be answered by both doctors. With the healthcare you both wanted to provide being affordable in hospitals, yeah. With the healthcare you both wanted to provide affordable and, I don't know, hospital being a business, how are you able to pay the doctors in the hospital and the staff? How do you deal with losses in the hospital and some pressures? Dr. Maxwell.
Okay. If you can't hear me, you let me know. So, okay. Yes. So, of course, losses, you'll have to absorb them. How healthcare works is basically you have to look for strategic partnerships. So we have had partnerships with various financial institutions. Those are banks that when we need money to be able to make us survive and operate, we'll always run to them. We have forged relationships within medical insurances to be able to enable that we collect our revenues in time. So basically, it's about cash flow management, and that's a unit that every business will have to understand. So if you know that you operate in a credit business that is always taking an average of 150 days, so basically it means your cash conversion cycles in a year is about 3 times in a year. You need to be able to understand how you leverage on your receivables being collected early enough, as well as being able to mitigate as much credit as possible. So it's a cycle, basically. A bank gives you an overdraft, you pay your salaries today, you collect to be able to clear that overdraft. Then when the next salary comes, you also borrow again. So basically, you just need to maintain the engine running. That's how we try and survive. You need to minimize as much losses as possible. So basically, like I said, what is the entry criteria before you admit a patient? Do they have the capability to pay or not? Are you likely kuanza kuvurutana now? So those are things you stop as early as you can. For those who find their way inside, then you ensure the loss doesn't go too deep. If you realize this person cannot be able to pay at some point, then you offer service and say, it's okay. We have lost 500,000, but please let us not push it further. Let's see if we can be able to transfer you somewhere else where you can be able to pay. Basically we maintain that relationship. So you just really need to be very keen on your operations. Again, put systems in place. Pilferage is one of the biggest areas we lose revenue from staff, especially when you have a bigger, widespread network, because you cannot be there all over in all the branches at any time. So you need to put systems in place, stock counts, but then just ensure your staff understand they're actually working for themselves first before they're working for the investors of the business. With that, they need to realize that actually when I steal, I actually steal from myself, as opposed to thinking that I'm stealing from the organization.
Okay. So over to Dr. Abdi. The other question would be from Dalmas. The main objective of a business, as stated, is to make money. So how do you do this after all the free services you give to the patients?
You see, that's where now the pricing models come in. the operating costs. So basically, you have to make sure that your pricing models are able to sustain your day-to-day operations, and at the same time have a markup that's will cushion you from losses, that will cushion you from challenges that you will face as you, and that will enable you as well to grow the business as much as possible. So yeah, it's the pricing model that you have to work on very well and make sure it's appropriate.
Okay. The next question to Dr. Maxwell, from Dalmas. Do you spend all your time in your private hospital? How do you balance the time you spend to run your hospital and the time you needed in a public hospital? That is, maybe if you work in a public hospital.
First, I don't think any of us works in a public hospital anymore. Yes, so that is out.
Mm-hmm.
The last time I saw a patient was 2.5 years ago. It reaches a point you can't balance between clinical practice and management, and you have to choose a struggle. Otherwise, you're going to be offering half-baked services both sides. And so I'm fully 100% into administration and driving the strategy of the organization and the institution.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, scouting for the next step we are going to and what is the next direction, supervising the middle-level managers, driving the strategy of the organization. It's more of a management supervisory role as opposed to an operational level. So you need a clear brain to be able to drive the organization. And so being bogged down in daily operational things can actually weigh you down. And so we are not in clinical. I believe even Abdi is not in clinical anymore. Yeah, I don't know if that answers his question.
I think.
Yeah, I'm not in clinical and I don't work for government. The last time I worked for government was 2010.
Okay.
December 2010.
Because there's also another question that asked whether both of you still practice, and I'm sure that question has been answered. Also, Dr. Abdi, the next question would be from Arthur. What are some of the strategic decisions that you made that were against the grain but enabled the hospitals to grow exponentially as we have them, as we see them today?
For me, I would say it was opening the ICU and the dialysis unit. The perception or the idea was ICU is loss-making. It can only be done by the big private hospitals or a public hospital. So at that time when we were starting, we were told, you guys are mad. How are you starting an ICU? It's impossible, it's loss-making, it's useless. That is the story the big hospitals sold to other smaller hospitals. So luckily, we started, and now every major small private hospital has an ICU and a dialysis unit. So that made the change for us. Moving into that tertiary care was a big change at that time.
Okay. I also feel like we can also hear the side of this answer from Dr. Maxwell. The question was, if I can repeat it, or what are some of the strategic decisions that you made that were against the grain but enabled the hospitals to grow exponentially?
Like I told you, I was coming from a point of lack of capital, and so if you know the story of Roy family, how it started, we started from almost nothing. And so where we were looking at a place that even the ability to purchase the services was not there. And so choosing a private hospital, 98% of private hospitals in this country were in NHIF category C. And so that was a strategic decision against the grain that we did that made us get to where we are. We chose category B, whereby normal delivery is 10,000. That's what NHIF gives you. Cesarean section is 30,000. That's what NHIF gives you. And so with that, we saw an economies of scale that really enabled us to grow beyond. And so that's how we were able to build on our reserves to be able to expand and grow beyond that. And now finally, we can be able to enter into the league of the institutions like Ladnan and the other middle level healthcare providers. Other than that, I think that was the main strategic thing that we went against what the conventional way people were looking at. We chose the opposite direction.
Okay. Over to you, Dr. Abdi. Still from Arthur, concerning decision making, how do you make decisions when confronted by complex situations, especially as the CEO, and everyone is looking at you for direction?
I always say all decisions I make are in the interest of the business, and nothing emotional or personal or feelings about it. So you weigh what works best for the business and what is the best in the best interest of the business. Forget about your ego, put aside your emotions, all those things, you put them aside and you look at the sustainability and the progress and the best decision for the business. So for me, that's how I look at, and you weigh each decision or each challenge that you face on how to go about it. Basically, if I would compare, is when a patient presents to you, they usually don't, you investigate, you try to find out, you do history, you do physical examination, you do some tests, and then you get the diagnosis and you say, this is the treatment. Nothing different. You go through the same process. You try to weigh what are the problems, what could be the solution, what are the many, and in all solutions, you look at the pros and cons before you make that decision. So you look at the worst case scenarios for all your decisions. Sometimes there's a decision that looks very beautiful and nice, but when you think about the challenges, you will realize the cons, it's disastrous. So that's how I do.
Okay. And over to you, Dr. Maxwell. It's from Benz and Chuma. We currently have a lot of foreign, I don't know what PE is, a lot of foreign PE folks eyeing out healthcare market. So what are the pros and cons of indigenous entrepreneurs working with these foreign PE guys? And how do you ensure the long-term vision of a founder is safeguarded?
I think that question is best directed to Dr. Abdi. He has a better experience with the private equity fund. Some of us have been taken round and round. So yeah, but just to add on to it, of course, there's a perception that private equity is a shark who is coming to swallow you and probably run away with it. But again, it's not always there. For any business to grow, you need funds to be invested in a business. I think that's a perception we need to change as a nation and entrepreneurs in Kenya. The only problem I have is most Kenyan businesses, I think Abdi and Narrowminded were very lucky and Avenue in terms of the evaluation and that period. There's a lot of movement. Right now, you need to be very careful what valuations they're using in your business, because I am a proponent of the idea of using EBITDA in healthcare not to be very good. You need to have a mix of EBITDA and discounted cash flows, because healthcare is very capital intensive. If you're going to use EBITDA, your bottom line should not determine your valuation of a business. Your business should be valued in your future cash flows, because healthcare keeps growing. Nairobi Hospital started as a nursing home. Today is one of the biggest hospitals in the region. So if somebody was using their bottom line as a valuation, then I think whoever was there at that point would have been shortchanged. for them to be aligned with your strategic direction, it's usually a thing of, it's a two-sided coin. Of course, when a man is hitting into a woman, you'll promise the woman all the heavens and tell them, whichever place you want to go for holiday, we will take you. Babe, I'll take you to Mykonos or whatever. And so once she says yes and she's there, then now Naivasha is the farthest you can take her. So they'll tell you we are aligned, but when they become the majority, then you realize your decision does not matter anymore. Abdi, over to you.
Let me make it better for you. There's a Somali saying that says, ingiza msichana na uongo kwa box na you keep her with the truth. Unamweka kwa nyumba na ukweli, lakini saa ile unamweka box unamdanganya na uongo mingi.
Na uongo yote. True.
So PE, private equity, is a very interesting, guys, because what you need to understand is they have raised capital. And they have raised capital from wealthy people, sometimes even governments, sometimes from sovereign funds. So their main bottom line is to provide returns for their money that they have collected. So their sole focus sometimes is what returns can we make? But the question is, how else would you be able to grow if you keep off from PE fund? The alternative is to grow from your cash flow, which will take you years. You will not grow as fast as you would like, or borrow. And borrowing has its own disadvantages as well, because what will happen is sometimes the business can go not as expected or anticipated, and that means you will be basically auctioned. And that's why you will see many businesses or cars or what being auctioned, because they took loans on the premise that they would be able to pay, but later they were unable. So it's hard for you to sustain your vision when you have PE fund, because for them, as I have told you, from the word go, their intention is bottom line.
Yeah.
But if your intention is other things, you will never be in agreement. And most PE funds wouldn't want to be or invest in a hospital and be minority. Majority would want to be the majority shareholder. Yes, as much as they will keep you and you will be with them, but you will not be flexible as you would have done when you are alone, and you cannot make decisions like the way you would want, like opening branches here, left, right, center, without for them being part of it and for them buying that idea. And sometimes some of those branches that you will open or services, as an entrepreneur, it's gut feeling that take you rather than hard facts. So there you will have challenges because with the PE, everything has to be proven through either research or through consultant who has done some work for them. So that's the only way. And then they want to, as minimal as possible, not to use money, but use the cash flow from the company to expand as well. So yes, those are some of the challenges. But in my opinion, if you look around the world, if you really want to be able to be successful and do things, you can't stick or hold on to your business. If you look Elon Musk, he sold PayPal, and the money he got is what he used to do Tesla, all these other companies. And he said by the time he was setting up those 3 companies, after he sold his initial business, he didn't even have rent to pay for his own house. So that's the beauty with PE as well. It gives you some liquid cash for you to be able to do other things as well, or even the same line of business better and bigger, and you learn a lot.
Okay. Over to you, Dr. Maxwell. And this question is from Ernest. Raising capital and further being able to raise revenue as a startup is definitely one of the biggest challenges. So do you mind giving us a breakdown on how to go about this or how you handled this?
I'll be very honest with you. You'll rarely get someone who's going to invest in a startup. Yeah. I know there are angel investors out there, but in Africa, it's something that's almost non-existent. Nobody wants to invest in what they do not have a vision, or they do not have an idea of whether nobody wants to take the risk. So the person who takes the risk is a vision holder. And so if you want to do something and start something, usually in Africa, what is our first initial capital? Is it borrowing from friends and family? Is it savings? Is it your salary? Or have you taken a loan somewhere? Which of course I would never advise for you to take a loan to start a zero greenfield project. So the best thing would probably be either savings or borrowings from friends and family. It's called the soft capital. There's a name I've forgotten. But yes, that's usually the first aspect. So when you have that, then you build on that and do something called a proof of concept. So when you have done a proof of concept, if let's say you have 100,000, and now these 100,000 you've put in, let's say, an ultrasound machine, and you're putting it in your backpack and walking around Kilimani, and pregnant mothers call you and you give them the results, and you have money coming in and you have your books to show. Then now with your bankings, and of course you have a record system, you can easily approach someone now and say, listen, I started with 100,000, now we are at 500,000. If you give me 200,000 today, it will enable me to move from an ultrasound to now let's have an ultrasound and an ECG. That will increase my revenue from 500 that I was doing and take me to 2 million. So basically that's how you build capital in the initial phases. Then after that, of course, now once you have good books and you have a track record of at least 6 months and above, then now the banks can come in. Then once the banks come in, then now, of course, the private equity people come in, or then you can go into listing and then all the other avenues of getting financing. Of course, financing within our region is very expensive, but that's what we have to live with. But again, if everybody who uses the same finance is managing to make it work, then clearly it's possible for it to work. So I usually say the excuse that I do not have the capital is almost non-existent. Okay. If you're waiting for someone to come and give you money to set up a clinic, of course, there are lucky people out here. They applied somewhere, they got a grant, just from nowhere because there's a competition, but those are outliers. It's like the normal curve where there are outliers on each side of the curve. Pretty much, that's it.
Okay. So
the initial capital is usually the 3 F's: friends, fools, and family. Those are the only people who can invest in you.
Okay. And if we're to bring it closer home, how did you manage to raise capital to start?
It's the 3 F's: friends, family. Maybe you can get a fool 1 or 2 who would trust you, but generally it's just that: friends, family. That's all.
Okay.
I don't know, Maxwell.
Yes.
I'm sure it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Friends and family, and of course, I had a bit of salary and savings. So yes.
Okay. We can go to Dr. Abdi. This question is from George. So what are some of the measures private hospitals had to put in place to mitigate COVID-19 effects? So to stay afloat when others were facing oblivion.
Basically, what we managed is to just for us to remain and sustain. We cut on some of the things like locums, stopped overtimes, so that the staff, the core staff, are able to run the hospital. So that's what we did to begin with, and we were able to survive as much as possible. But I know it wasn't easy. I know some hospitals had to cut salaries. Luckily for London, we did not cut anyone's salary. So, but we made sure everyone had to push themselves. If they were doing 15 shifts a month, they had to add another 3-4 shifts just to make sure we remain afloat.
Okay. And addressed to Dr. Maxwell, this is from Clinton. Could you please expound on how you managed to attend both Stanford and Harvard graduate business schools and the lessons you learned from that experience?
First and foremost, I need to be very clear. The executive programs that I did. So I prefer the executive programs, and that's why you see Abdi tried health economics. He has not graduated. I've not graduated. Went to development finance. I have not graduated. So I think as an entrepreneur, the demands are too much for you to have a full-time class education. And so executive programs are the best tailor-made programs for business people. So basically, Harvard was a 1-year program, but you're in class for 4 weeks. These 4 weeks are across the world. One in Ghana, one in New York, Harvard Business School, one in Kenya, and there's a pointer in Mauritius. But it's offered by Harvard Business School under the executive programs. I think executive programs in Harvard is what has made Harvard what it is today. For the Harvard course, I think if there's anything that I got more important than anything was a social capital in terms of networks and connections, and sitting in a class with top corporate bosses across the continent, from the CEO of GE to the CEO of the leading bank in Nigeria, and so to the head of risk in one of the biggest banks in the region. And so that social capital in terms of networks and connections and how these people reason and think, for me, that was a better investment. Of course, the content is very good. It's structured in the way it's a case-based education system. You study cases of various businesses that have risen and fallen down. Nakumat is one of them. A wide range of companies that they've sampled across the world. And it gives you an idea of how to tackle very critical situations in business when you are called upon to make those tough decisions. Stanford was, it's a seed program. Seed program, it's like an accelerator program that is done. They have the Africa region, they have the Asia region, they have the Middle East, and they have the European seed program. That for me was like the core business school. For me, it's even better than an MBA that you can get anywhere. It's a full year's course. It's not 4 weeks. You have different immersion weeks, and you have your coaches coming to your company and actually interacting with your staff. And then you have a mentor. It's a full 360 panel beating to make you a business person. So for me, those 2 courses were very insightful. Right now I'm doing one at ESS School of Business, which is part of University of Nevada, Spain. And COVID has disrupted, but was also a very good insight into it. It's the same model that Strathmore is using, and their courses I would recommend for anyone who wants to have that eye-opener into what the world is thinking and which direction the world is moving to.
That's in terms of finance.
It's business. It gives you not finance is just a unit in that. So business is from ethics to finance to budgeting to strategy to decision making to growth. How do you expand across continents? How do you expand across borders? What are the things you look at? What are the things you start considering? It's the same thing today. With these counties, it's not the same. For me to go and open RFH in Taita Taveta, it will not be as easy as opening it in Nairobi. There are things you have to look at. What are the dynamics? What are the demographics? What are the tribal factors? What are the leaders in that area going to perceive? How do you manage leaders in areas that are ideally not your locality? And so finance is just a unit. It's a drop in the ocean for the entire course. Yes.
And to get this right, I don't think I understood it well. You said 4 weeks. Was it 4 weeks in Kenya and then 4 weeks in Ghana for the Stanford?
No, Stanford, we were in Kenya throughout.
Oh, okay.
Stanford Seed Program is offered in Kenya. It's a East Africa thing. So people from, it's East and South Africa. So the participants from Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Rwanda, Ethiopia, they all come to Kenya. 4 weeks in a year. But then in between the 4 weeks, you also have, those are called immersion weeks. Then in between the 4 weeks, you have your mentors to coach comes to your company again. Then again, you have assessments in between. Then you have your coach always. And it's an ongoing program. I still have conversations every week with my coach who's based in Stanford, just to see how the business is going. We co-opted even one of our coaches into the board. And so for Stanford Seed Program, it's a lifelong thing. It's like a membership that you've joined. And so sometimes you have the various regions for the Seed Program meeting in various parts of the world. Sometimes, last time they came to Kenya from Asia, India, Europe, Kenya, Africa. You just meet the whole Seed Program family because the Seed Program is based into regions. There's a East and Central one, there's a Nigerian one, there's a like I said, India, Asia, Europe, Middle East, yes.
Okay. So for the Harvard one, is the one that I didn't get correctly. You moved from 4 weeks.
All these courses, the real classwork is 4 weeks in a year. 4 weeks.
Okay.
Yes. So these 4 weeks, because you are a businessman, you're meant to be in your company. So for example, you'll have 1 week, full week. It's a full week that starts at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Let's say you are hosted in Strathmore Business School for the Kenyan one. Then you go to Accra, Ghana after another period. You have like a challenge you do in between week one and week 2 that you go and report that is related to the business that you do. It's a real life challenge. They ask you, what is your big business challenge today? And how are you going to evaluate it? So in between the first week and the second week, your supervisor you send feedback. It's like a project, it's like a thesis. So when you go for the second week, let's say you go to Accra, Ghana, you do another 1 week, same time. Then you go to Harvard Business School for another 1 week, like a full immersion week. Then you go to Mauritius for another 1 week, full days program. But in between is where you have your projects, like thesis sort of, yes.
The questions are about to end. Please bear with me. So Dr. Abdi, why aren't there, this is from Ian, why aren't there specialized hospitals in Nairobi? They're all general hospitals.
The biggest challenge is we don't have as many specialists as are able to sustain a specialist hospital. That's one. Number two, as Maxwell said, if you have 3% of the population paying with insurance, then it means majority of the guys are out of pocket, and out of pocket is not sustainable, and it's very difficult mode of payment for healthcare. So that means for you to sustain a specialist hospital, you must have enough numbers of specialists to begin with, who will not be moving back and forth to other hospitals. And number two, enough patient pool who are able to afford, because patients are there. Generally, the problem is affordability. And that's why you will find MOs doing certain things that should be done by a general surgeon or an obstetrician. It's just that the patient can't afford the obstetrician. So that's where the challenge usually arises. So unless and until the time we manage to streamline healthcare financing, especially the payment method, and more so pushing for pooling of risks where everyone has cover, then we will have these challenges. And if it was my decision, I would say no patient should be served without a cover, even if it's NHIF. If you go to a hospital, the minimum you should have is NHIF, no cash paying patient.
Okay. I totally agree with you on that one. The other question would be from Karuku. Who are your target employees and what values and skills would you like every employee to possess?
We don't have any target, but majority of my staff are younger than me, almost 99%, if I would say. So meaning we have gone for the youth in our hiring. The biggest skill is a guy who would put the business interest ahead of all interest, and a guy who has the capacity to reason. Because if there's one thing that you don't want is someone who says or does things because it's in the books, or this is how we do things, this is the tradition. I'd rather have someone who is able to reason, decide, look at the situation, because there are no two scenarios which are the same. So we would want someone who has that capacity to imagine and think and see the best way out, that reasoning. And unfortunately, problem-solving skills is not very common to everyone. So you have to train and teach and accept that they will make mistakes.
Okay. And what about you, Dr. Maxwell?
I usually say, if you hire, first go for the attitude, first more than anything else. Because knowledge and skill can be built, but changing attitude is one of the hardest things. So you need someone who has a positive attitude towards work. And attitude now comes into, you have the best interest of the business, you're willing to be corrected, you're willing to be directed, you're willing to sometimes stretch yourself when called upon, and basically see the future as opposed to today. The problem we are seeing today, and this is something I need to bring forward, because most of our audience are students in school today. I'm seeing a lot of young doctors who are very impatient to make it within 2 days. Maxwell Okoth has not been where he is in 2 days. It's been now 8 years of sweat, toil, and struggles, and ulcers and pain, like we've told you. It looks rosy from the outside, but inside it's not. And so you find a staff coming, and all of a sudden he wants to be like you. Not that it's a bad thing, but he doesn't want to work for it. So attitude is the main thing for me more than anything else. So you need to have a positive attitude to be taught. I am where I am today because the consultants in Kiambu sharpened me. And I was, not to blow my trumpet, but I think I was one of the best interns during my time. Because every rotation I went, I gave it my best. Because I knew that 1 year was where I was going to get as much skills as possible, so that when I go out here, I am marketable. And that's how I was even able to raise capital to build into my business. The first few years, I actually literally used to sustain the business with my salaries and locums and side hustles that I used to do. And all these were purely clinical in nature. A patient calls you in a private hospital and you do an appendectomy and you get the money and you go pay salaries on the other side. So that attitude to be able to stretch yourself and push yourself over and beyond, for me, is worth much more than anything. You could be the best doctor, in terms of brains and knowledge, but if your attitude is crap, then I don't think we can gel. Yes.
Okay. And the final question for today, seeing that I don't have any more questions on the chat box and the Q&A section, are you both able to offer any mentorship opportunities to the participants or anyone interested? Anyone interested in following your footsteps?
Abdi, will I go first?
We are more than willing, but you see the problem with this word mentorship is people assume that I am the one who is going to do.
To look for them.
So generally, the way mentorship works is you have an interest, then you are the one who now looks for me, you plan, you ask me questions. I will be busy. But if you don't persist and you don't follow up and you are not asking and you are not, you don't have, basically, I'm not a lecturer or I'm not a teacher who's going. What you need is you come up with problems. Like you tell me, this is what I'm facing, this is what I want to do, this is what I have thought about. What do you think? That's how I will be able to mentor you. It doesn't mean you just come, walk around and look at what I'm doing and all that. That will not help you. It's the fact that you can pick on my brain on things and challenges and ideas and things that you want to do. And that means unajituma. So nikikwambia leo siko available, you don't give up. Basically, unless it means whatever you are doing is by the way. Because if it's your idea and if it's something that you are passionate about and you want to do it, for sure you are supposed to follow up until you get those answers and solutions that you are looking for.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Abdi has just hit it spot on, and that's what exactly I was going to start with. I get a lot of requests of people who want to be mentored, but like again I said, it's an attitude issue. Not to sound rude, and I hope it doesn't be turned against me. When you want to be mentored, you're literally begging for an advice that you're not paying for. Put yourself in my shoe. On Monday at 7:59 a.m., first of all, your phone starts ringing with messages of checks that are hitting the bank. Whether the money is there or not, you do not know. And so, of course, that brings a second phone call, and your phone will not stop ringing the whole day. You have stuff here you have to deal with. You have suppliers, you have consultants, you have family, you have relatives, and you have everyone around you. So your basket already is full. But that does not mean you're not willing to offer a bit of time. And so if you're coming in as a mentor, you need to understand the position I come with. I will tell you today is not possible. I might disappoint you twice in a row. But of course, even me as a human, I will not do it the third time. So that persistence is very important. And then again, for me, if I'm going to a mentor, if he gives me 10 minutes, I'll be very appreciative because it's what I get in that 10 minutes that matter. There are various doctors who have been calling me, they want to set up and what. And so mentorship does not mean you are on my side or you have to be there next to me. It could be just exchanging ideas and seeking a consult. And that's even easier and better in this current world than anything else. I'm going through this. What do you think I should do? How should I look at it? I will not give you the answer, but I'll give you the options that you can look at it. We are also not 100% perfect. We also have issues we are dealing with. And so it's what you can pick that is best from me and leave what is not good from me. You understand? But also it is you to push for it. So if I can mentor, the answer is yes. There are people who have helped me to get to where I am. And of course, I had to push them to be able to get that information. When I was setting up, actually, it's a clinical officer and a nurse who gave me the majority of the information I needed. I lowered myself and didn't say that I'm a doctor, MBCHB, and this clinical officer was running a clinic somewhere in Roysambu. I just needed to see the setup. And so, yeah, those who want to be mentored, we are here. But also, it will not be, I need to see you tomorrow. Yes, I'm available. You know, you also need to understand the terrain we operate in and be able to to adjust according to it.
Okay. So how do you want them to reach out to you? Via email or via phone call?
Someone has already written me an email. Of course, I will respond. Yeah, I think that would be easier for me.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Abdi?
You can reach me out in any way, phone call, email,
Facebook,
DM, message, whichever.
Instagram.
Sometimes I might not reply, or I will reply late. I'm sure Benjamin will tell you. But when I do, at least I will reply.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's it for the questions that I had. Hope they were not too many. And I want to thank you for the informative and very inspiring session. I've really learned a lot, and I hope to be in your shoes one day in the near future. And I think one advice that I will take, because I am heading to internship, would be to give my all during internship, so that I can be able to be in your shoes one day. I will call upon Benjamin, who was also to give the vote of thanks. And after that, he will let us know of the program.
On the issue of internship, that's where you learn life skills, not just clinical skills, because that's where you will meet consultants who are harsh. That's where you will meet consultants who are friendly. That's where you will meet nurses. That's where you will meet other cadres of staff. So how you learn to work with people in a setting of high pressure will mold you to who you will be. You will either be successful or you will have a hard time, and you will be lamenting that, oh, I don't know who hates you, I don't know who you don't talk to, I don't know what. But if you accept that everyone has a role to play in that hospital, and no matter their status, you will be fine, and you will enjoy internship. And then number two, that's where you need to pick your clinical skills, because when you come out and you mess, you will find me on this other side, the medical council, where now we will not accept you to be a dangerous doctor. The solution is many. One of them is taking away your license. So try to learn the ethics, learn the correct thing. And when you come out, don't be in a hurry and start doing neurosurgery because you have seen it being done in internship and you want to make quick money so that you can buy some Subaru somewhere. It won't work. You will be in trouble. So learn the ethics as well, and be humble.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I will always remember that. Yeah. So, Benjamin.
Thank you so much, Mdhoni, for that wonderful moderation that you've done. And thank you so much, Dr. Abdi and Dr. Koth, for the informative session that it has been. I'm personally encouraged and motivated and inspired to do even better than I have been doing. We've had a series of webinars for like 7 weeks now, and all the time it's been us that have been giving a vote of thanks. So today I'd want to do it a bit differently. In addition to the positive feedback that we've seen in the chats and in the Q&A session, I'd want to pick someone random just to give us the feel of the webinar it has been. So George Jeremiah, if you can hear me, kindly say something to our speakers and also our attendees. George Jeremiah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Yeah, for me, I think I'm very grateful for the sessions you guys have been hosting over the past 7 weeks. And specifically today, I believe I've interacted with Dr. Abdi when I was Msake president during my tenure. I also did interact with Dr. Okoth, especially during the last the most immediate KMA conference in 2019 at Lake Naivasha Resort. And it was really a jaw-dropping session when both of them also in that panel. And also seeing them today and inspiring us as the upcoming doctors, as also students. To me, it's quite an amazing session. And so I'm really grateful and looking forward to, of course, even reaching out, as they've said. And I've also garnered, especially on that aspect of attitude, and also personally being a finalist, headed to internship. And I've also picked quite a lot from Dr. Abdi and also Dr. Koth in terms of also carrying out myself during my internship period. And so I believe this has been a touching session, not only for me, but also to our attendees. So thank you so much. I wouldn't want to add more on that. Thank you, Benjamin, for giving me this session also to speak at such a noble event. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Jude, for that response. Our audience is quite a varied a group of individuals from different courses and different schools, and I'm glad that they have joined us and have been able to pick something from the session. This is to our speakers, Dr. Abdi and Dr. Koth. Thank you so much for the session and for sparing time to be with us today. We've learned a lot more than just the business aspect of healthcare. We've also got pieces of advice from you, and that is so dear to us. Thank you so much for that. Also to our amazing attendees, thank you so much for making this session worth your time and also our time. And also to the organizing committee, thank you also for sparing your time to make this happen today. This will this will give us the end of our session today, and I'd want to wish all of us the best in during this weekend and also the coming week. We will keep in touch and inform you of any future activities that we will be having. So at this point, I want to allow you to live at your own pleasure. So you guys can, yes. Thank you so much, Doc.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.